Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to the show. I have the one and only Sarah Jenks with us today. Would you like to say hello to our beautiful community?
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Lindsay.
Of course. So I would love to just hear from you. Who are you and how do you describe your work in the world and who you are as a woman and as a mama and a service-led entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I am a pretty normal girl. I have three kids. I live in the suburbs of Boston. My kids go to public school. I spend all of my weekends on the sports fields. I'm married to a doctor. We met when we were 21. And I am also a priestess. I've been studying in the lineage of the 13 Moon Mystery School for over 10 years. And I was ordained 3 years ago, which is a very rigorous and initiatory path. And I am a leader of a sacred feminine temple. So I hold a range, we
Yeah.
could say. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things about you is your approachability and your accessibility. And I feel like that's part of why I'm here as well is, you talk about bringing the divine into our everyday reality and bringing the sacred feminine into everyday life. And so let's talk about that because I love that you open with like, I'm a pretty ordinary, normal gal, like living outside of Boston.
Yeah.
I'm on the sports fields. And let's talk about the convergence of that and the importance of that and really what you believe what we're here to do in the harmony of our divine self and our human self.
Yeah. So I think the place I wanna start is I grew up, like, 5 minutes from where I live now. It is, like, normal Massachusetts. Um, you know, traditional family values, and I grew up going to church, and I had, like, no awareness of, like, magic or the sacred feminine besides the fact that I could totally see fairies when I was a child, and I felt the trees talking to me, but I just thought, everyone could do that, which I think we can as children, and then I grew up and just thought I was crazy. So, what happened for me was I was going to therapy, and I walked into my therapist's office one day, and she had forgotten to clean up from a gathering she had the night before, and I saw backjacks on the floor. I could smell incense in the air. There were these beautiful paintings of goddesses around the room, and I just started to cry
Mm.
because it was like seeing a best friend for the first time after 20 years. But in this lifetime, I didn't know that I had missed what I was seeing on the floor. So I asked my therapist what had happened, and she said, "I'll tell you when you're ready," which was, like, so mysterious and really got me hooked. And I kept asking her questions, and eventually she invited me into a sacred feminine ceremony. And I was in the personal development industry for many years at the time. I was an emotional eating coach, and I was going through a really difficult time that all of my personal development tools were not touching. And I was in therapy with her, and which was working a little bit because turns out she was like doing some other stuff sort of like behind the scenes. And but when I came into ceremony with her, I just I saw everything clearly, and I started to really understand my inner workings, and I started to have a real sense of purpose and clarity. And so I just started digging into, like, what is this? And, like, why isn't everybody doing it? And why do I feel like I can't tell anyone about it? So that's when I started digging into the history of the sacred feminine. And what I learned was that everyone used to have a sacred feminine practice. This was so normal. It was like how our kids all like play soccer. We have to go to the sports field. It was like we'd go to sports and then we'd go to temple and then we would have a barbecue and then we would pray to the goddess. It was just part of humanity's everyday life. And as I dug into the history, I started to learn that it was deliberately and violently erased, this way of seeing the world, this way of life. The temples were destroyed by warriors of the Catholic Church, and often churches and community centers were built on top of these temples. And there was this widespread campaign against the sacred feminine. It was made to feel evil, it was made to feel dirty, it was made to feel weird, and with that, I promise I'm getting to your question, by the way. And with that,
Loving it.
okay, with that, um, it impacted our psychology as women and how we see each other because humans evolve through story and metaphor and through seeing archetypes of power and sensuality and sovereignty through metaphor and folklore and story. And so all of that was deliberately erased. Then, of course, you add in the collective trauma of rape and violence and killing and enslavement. And all of that was connected to erasing the sacred feminine in order to oppress women and people of color. So I say all of this because we still carry a thread of this belief system that a sacred feminine spiritual practice is weird or should be separate or is fringe, and we don't always see it as important or that it can fit into our everyday life. So I've just tried to make it with my community as normal as possible. So the way I do it is, like, we talk about the goddess at breakfast with my kids. You know, we are tracking the moon and I'm talking about how my menstrual cycle is synced up with the moon. We're talking about the erasure of the sacred feminine and how it's connected to reproductive rights now. So like that's a conversation I'm starting to really have with my children around reproductive justice because we have things happening in our personal life where they need to be part of this conversation. And so it's just, I think it's so important for us to first learn the wisdom that we've been severed and then begin to find ways to sort of weave it in. And like, most of my, co-mothers on the soccer field, like they all know what I do. They now ask me questions about it. I talk about it like I'm a dentist because I basically am, you know?
This is so powerful because I love what you mentioned about bringing it into the family unit, but also as it relates to the women that you're supporting. A key piece that you mentioned, and I think it's part of like the awakening journey of right coming back online. It's like this separation of like, okay, we got to go out into the woods under the full moon and in the darkness and away from everyone. And what I really hear from you is, again, this integration of there comes a point when you're just you. And then people get curious and people see that you're still doing all of these things with your family and you're living in the world. And I think I wrote down here bringing the sacred feminine back into everyday life so that we can feel prosperous, beautiful, and have a prosperous, beautiful, and meaningful existence.
Uh-huh.
So you just helped connect a dot for me because I think it's part of the journey to first like hide it from our families and our spouses and our kids and our communities. And so do you
Right.
want to speak to that at all in terms of the thread of how to maybe practice feeling safe or not feeling shame around like first feeling weird or
Yeah.
separating that from everyday life?
Yeah, totally. So I think the piece let me just feel for where I wanna start on this.
Definitely nuanced question.
Yeah, no, it's good. So, first of all, what I would say is I think it's important to have times in the woods. You know what I mean? I think it's important to have a place where we can feel safe, to fully remember who we are, and have a place to build our capacity in order to be with the full range of being alive. And so the piece with this that I think is most important to understand is like having a sacred practice and going into ceremony and understanding having a sacred feminine practice. 'Cause a sacred feminine practice brings us close to the earth and it inherently connects us to each other and makes us responsible for each other. Because the sacred feminine is a web, it is a mycelial network. And we're taught that we are just one part of a whole system and that we have responsibility to the whole system. So when we come into that architecture, that sacred architecture, and we also have a place to practice feeling the larger web and feeling the deep grief and the darkness of the larger web that we sit in right now, and we experience, we have a place to go all the way in and out the other side, to have a catharsis, to meet the grief, to meet the darkness. When we have a place to practice that, we then can go into our lives as emissaries of love, as sacred women, and sit in the darkness with people, of like literally walk our love into the darkest places of the earth and really stand there and act as love. And that's for everybody, shows up differently depending on our unique gifts and our purpose in this lifetime, and what we're called to do and how we're called to be of service and to bring offerings. And I think that's the most important piece for us to look at right now. I think if we are still like struggling to be honest that we believe in a higher power that is a woman, we just have to get over that. I just think like I'm sort of bored of that conversation, to be honest with you, because I if we can't see the connection that we feel embarrassed to honor a higher power that is feminine in nature, how can we ever expect anyone to honor or respect us? You know what I mean? So it's okay. Like we all have that wiring to think it's weird, but like maybe in this moment, if you're listening to this podcast, you can just decide that that wiring is actually not yours. It is part of your brainwashing, and it is a sacred act of revolution to say, "The feminine matters. My practices are okay. It is okay that I am different. This was the most normal thing to do on the planet ever until the oppressive patriarchy violently erased it, and so I'm gonna stand in my own sovereign power and not worry about what my partner thinks or my mom thinks or like that random woman on the soccer field, because I need to build a capacity to actually be in service for other people who need it. And if we're just like caught up in what everybody's thinking about us all the time, then we're just stuck and we're not getting to the real work that we came here to do.
Yeah, and what I'm really feeling from you is just like this confidence and this conviction, and it's just so clear that you're the living embodiment of who you came here to be.
Oh, thanks, Lindsay.
And so it's powerful because, so many women are looking for that, right? And so when you talk about, I'm just so curious, like when you used to tell people at the soccer field, I'm a priestess, or
Yeah.
I know your background is in psychology. Did you end up using that before you had the emotional eating coaching business?
I mean, not specifically.
Okay.
I was in marketing for a while, and
Okay.
then I was applying to psychology programs
Okay.
to get my PsyD, and then, I decided to go the emotional eating,
Okay.
counseling, life
Okay.
coaching route,
Okay.
which is different than psychotherapy,
Right.
and as we know, has, like, an
Yeah.
element of it. Yeah.
But still, I'm just like looking at the through line of, right, the choices that you
Oh,
made.
there is for sure a
Yeah.
through line. The other thing that's cool is that I minored in art history,
Of
and
course.
and in college, I noticed that if I was like I had a binge disorder, and it would just feel like this uncontrollable urge to eat. One of the ways I would stop a binge was I would go to an art museum and look at what
Mm.
like pictures of voluptuous women in
Mm.
from a different era. And it's like did this whole thing for me psychologically. And there's this whole room in the art museum that my college town, that was all pictures of God, like paintings of goddesses, and I would spend hours in that room, so it's like there's a
Yeah.
little treasure map if we look back
Yeah.
in our lives, even it because, I always feel like this was like a total out of the blue left turn job change for me, but like when you look back, like it's really not.
You were like in your own little ceremony to support you and remembering
Totally.
who you were, right? Because the binging was basically your body just responding that you were out of alignment.
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. It's true.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, like for the woman who's at her journey where
Mm.
it's not as easy for her to be like, this is who the fuck I am. Right? Like,
Totally.
we're bringing the sacred into everyday life. Like,
Yeah.
was there a point? Like, I'm just curious, what did you do specifically? What were some of the tools and some of the practices? Was it always easy for you to be like, my name's Sarah Jenks and I'm a priestess? So let's
Okay.
talk about that shift. And if someone's at that point on her journey where she's practicing showing up authentically.
Yeah. So the thing that honestly really helped me was I looked at how my shyness was actually politically driven, you
Mm,
know? And I realized that I was feeling you badly about who I was as a person because there's been a patriarchal campaign to shut us down. And so when I get this is what works for me personally. You know, when I feel like an opposing like force that's trying to squash me or tell me who I need to be, I what I'm working on now is like, you know, being in my heart and being in love and letting love be bigger than that force. I've gone through like many years of my life where I'm like angry about it and I want to like, do all the things, but I'm really practicing like holding my vows of being in love and to letting my love for myself and my authentic expression in this practice be bigger than that opposing force. So that definitely helps me because when we realize that the fear is actually brainwashing and we label it that way, I find that we can, like, separate it from ourselves. Like, that fear that we have was actually implanted in us. It's not from us or real. And so when we realize it's been implanted, we can, like, take it out and just look at it and say, "Oh, yeah, of course I'm petrified." You know? There have been centuries of violence and shame and, deliberate just like deliberate takedown of the sacred feminine. Also, like I'm still trolled for being a priestess. So it's like also real and happening. And
yeah.
so it's like, yeah, like of course I would have fear. And am I going to choose to let it, really shape how I am? Or am I going to let my love be bigger than the fear and walk into the world as who I really am?
Yeah. And I imagine with the trolling, like it doesn't likely hurt like it used to,
Oh
or
god, no. No,
right?
no,
Yeah,
no, I'm just like,
yeah,
I'm always like, "Do you wanna come to ceremony? I
yeah.
love you. I'm sorry you're
Right.
threatened by me." But before, oh my god, it was the
Yeah.
worst. Yeah, because anytime someone comes at us, you know this, Lindsay, but it's, like, so important to talk about. It's just like, we're usually thinking the thing that they're saying, and we're way meaner to ourselves, and it's like but we're not willing to look at it, so it's been externalized.
Mm. Yeah.
And if it, like, hits us, we gotta look at, like, "Ooh, like, where do I believe that to be
Yes.
true?"
Exactly.
Yeah,
There's a part within my psyche that believes that this is reality, that this is truth, or else I wouldn't feel a physiological response from it.
totally. Yep, exactly. And, like, we all have that.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So it's, like, layers and layers and layers of compassion.
And I think it's cool, right? Because you are using your psychology background, right? Because you're talking
Good.
about like the psychological warfare that's happening
Yeah,
right on the city, right? So it's just so cool. And then when you talk about what I believe was your ceremony, right? It was like, okay, I'm going to be around the embodiment of the goddess so that
yeah,
I can remember who I am.
totally.
Um, and so I just think it's really powerful again to kind of see the through line of all of that you're still using and leveraging and harnessing all of the parts of you from before this moment in time. So do you want to talk about that when people feel that they're out of alignment or they're not on path or they don't know their purpose and just really supporting the people that are listening to this in the purposefulness of our evolutionary journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the first thing that's so important is that we've really conflated purpose and what we get paid to do. And I think that is incredibly detrimental because here's why. One, you have someone like me where my work is part of my purpose. But because I've also been, like, inundated with this conversation about work should be your purpose, I haven't done a great job expressing my purpose outside of my work in the world, and that has had an impact on me and an impact on other people, and then we also have people who don't have the choice to have their work be their purpose, and they also aren't thinking outside the box of, like, people's purpose is, like, in every interaction that you have with anything that's material and not alive, any other human being, the way you take care of your home, the way you drive out in the world, like, the way you eat, the food you make, it's all purpose. And so I think that we can decide to be on purpose right now. And it can just start with, like, your next meal. Can you eat your meal purposefully? Can you pick up and call a friend that you have been avoiding talking to, and be honest? So I think it's like we can start with, more commonly, we use the words like integrity or, truthfulness, like being in the truth of things, allowing ourselves to tell the truth, to feel what's real, and to do things purposefully, and then I think it's great to have a conversation about, like, our gifts that we have. And, I think we're all born with a certain, like, a foundation for gifts, and then they can be nurtured and studied and grown over a lifetime. And, some of us are just, like, so lucky to be able to get paid for our gifts and do them purposefully. But I've, like, definitely had moments when, like, I'm in my gifts, but I haven't been purposeful. We all do. So it's like, I just wonder if we can, think about it a little bit differently. And also, living purposefully is exhausting. It's like, it's like it's like really building a muscle. It takes a lot of work, and we have to reorganize, a lot of, energy leaks when we do that.
I have a 17-month-old, so I am
You
very much.
have a 17-month-old, Lindsay? Oh my god. Is
Yeah,
that
I've got
your child?
I'm sorry, it's my only child, yep, so,
Are you okay? We have to talk about that. What's
we
happening?
we get to talk about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, everything that you're speaking to, it's been crystallizing for me. For me, purpose feels like a way of being, and that's really what I'm hearing from you in, like, life's
yeah,
work or soul work or whatever it is, career, we can call it
yeah,
whatever you want. It's
yeah,
it's like how we bring that beingness into the work that we do. And so I think what you're also speaking to is, like, for me, as you're asking how I'm doing, thank you for asking how I'm doing
yeah. I
as a
actually, like,
mama.
really wanna know. I
Let's
bet
talk.
your listeners wanna know too, like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
what's the real?
The real is that I conceived my son moving from Florida to North Carolina,
Oh,
and literally the day I sold my house, I conceived my son. So I have moved to a completely new area where I completely started over. Both my husband and I are entrepreneurs, so, like, literally, when I tell you foundationally everything is crumbling from the
yeah,
ground up.
yeah, wow.
But I know in my heart of hearts, and this kind of goes and speaks to what we've just been talking about, I'm a former environmental engineer, and
Cool.
I've I know that I am here to have two parallel paths of being a mother and simultaneously being in my service work. And I know in my bones that this is what I'm meant to do. And it's very similar. I'm really here to be a bridge and to show people how to bring the divine into their daily life. And for me, it's much more about practicality. As a mother, it's like, how can I bring the sacred into a micro moment?
That's
And it's
great.
really fucking hard. I'm not afraid to say that this has been the most challenging couple years of my life that I've consciously chose. And I'm here for it. I wouldn't change a thing. And so it's like a deepening with my understanding of evolution, of like doing the hard thing, of not pretending that it's easy, of not faking it. So for me, the best gift that I could give to my son, to myself, to my family, and to my community is being authentic, that it's hard. And there's times that I'm in a season right now of learning like how to have the sacred structure, which means how do I create structure to nourish myself and to
Yeah.
replenish and to be present. So yeah, these are all conversations that I'm honestly having multiple times a day, as you know, as a mother, just the nervous system response of like having this human who's now climbing on everything and constantly requiring a lot of my life force.
Yep.
So thank you for asking.
Yeah, totally. Do you have any questions on that? I mean,
Yeah,
'cause, like, it's
yeah,
so hard, and, like, I'm really here for you,
yeah.
you
Thank
know?
you. Thank you. And just the fact that the mothers, it's very rare. So, first of all, thank you, because it's so rare that people even ask me how I'm doing.
Oh, I'm sorry you had that experience.
Yeah, so my questions, how old are your kiddos?
My kids are 11,
Okay.
10, and 7.
Okay.
So, I had my 2nd child when my
Okay.
first one was 17 months.
Okay.
So,
Oh
just
gosh.
imagine having a baby right now.
Yeah. Like I just can't. And I know I always ask the question of you just figure it out. But yeah, I would love, because I do have a lot of mothers who are multi-passionate, who are very connected, and I think this portal literally strips you down, and I feel like I'm in a stage of honestly taking out everything that is just not aligned anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, I think that's super important. I think the other thing I wanna say is that from my lensing, motherhood is a role, not a job. And I think what can happen is when when we're mothers, if we think about it like a job, then we're thinking about it in terms of like hours. And then we feel like we have two jobs and we're splitting our love and attention. And I would say the way I hold it is that I have a job. My job is to be a priestess, and I hold a role as a mother. And whether I am working 10 hours a week or 60 hours a week, I am always a full-time mother, because these beings are always connected to my soul. And then, we get to make choices around how we show up for that role. But I think that understanding that our role as mother is like an ever present connection to our children, that we get to decide how we like hold and manage. I have found for me has like freed me up to um be more authentic in how I'm expressing my role as a mother, how I show up for my job. And it gives me flexibility in allowing that to shift and change as my kids have gotten older. So that's like the first thing I would say. Also, things really change when your youngest is 4, 4.5.
Okay,
It's
so
just
got a
like
few more years.
you have a few more years. Also, because like, I called that phase of my life the birther phase.
Okay.
Because like, we knew we were gonna have 3 kids, we did not know they were all gonna come so close together. But I was like, "I am a birther right now," and being a birther and having babies is like night and day from my experience of being a mother, you
Mm.
know? Because, like, once I was out of the baby phase, the child phase is longer and you can sort of, like, get into a rhythm and, I don't know, it's been so much easier for me and more enjoyable. I mean, still, like, deeply hard, but it's like, I am here for this soul assignment,
Mhm.
and, it's been helpful for me to, like, really sort of treat it as almost like 2 separate roles.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that,
Yeah.
because just the pendulum swing of emotions of
Mm.
life experience from day to day. It's like I think I've got it and then something it just feels it's such a rapid shift that
Yep,
just when you figure something out it changes again
yep.
and
And
it's
that slows down
okay,
later. Yeah,
after 4.
after 4. I know it sounds like it is, it's a long time, so then it's like, "Okay, it's gonna be like this for a while. I've
Yeah,
gotta, like, what's my self-care for right now?
right.
How do I make this, like, work for myself?" Knowing it's not gonna be like this forever, and I'm gonna have, like, a whole moment that it's just gonna be, like,
Yeah.
a little bit more even.
Yeah, and it's almost like my attachment to things. That's what I feel like is really the life force. That's what I'm in right now. It's like actually it's when I'm so attached to something happening and then it not, that's the thing that
Oh,
zaps me.
interesting. Uh-huh. Can you give me an example of what
Like nap time, all of a
um,
sudden I have something scheduled or I think this is how my day is gonna go, and then it's like I'm preparing for it and then it shifts, and then I can feel just everything. It's like the controller in me and I can feel all of that zapping me and then I get exhausted. So it's actually not the mothering. I feel really connected to what you shared. I feel
yeah.
my role. I can feel so I'm like I'm dancing and kind of deepening in that question of my attachment is actually what creates the exhaustion. This is actually something that has come through from Mother Mary. Your attachment is what exhausts you as it relates to mothering. So I've been playing
Yeah,
with that a bit.
totally. Well, it's really hard, to merge work schedules and kid schedules, and,
They're not robots.
they're not robots. I think it's too much for any woman to balance. I always had childcare, and, that was super important for me, because I was the same way as you, but I think it's probably normal unless we're gonna be willing to, like, cancel every podcast and every meeting. You know what I mean? And you just might not wanna do that. That's also okay.
Yeah, and I have childcare too,
Yeah.
and that has been a game changer for
Yeah.
me
It's
is
just
having
we
that
need many
support.
adults.
Right.
Yeah.
Having and like as you mentioned, we used to be in community and now it's so isolating. Motherhood is so
Yep.
isolating and it's not talked about enough. So I'm just so glad that you brought the conversation here because
Yeah.
normalizing what we experience as we step into this archetype. I feel like I'm just now actually fully embodying archetype of the mother
Mhm.
17 months later. It took me that many months to finally actually claim it.
I mean, I think it took me, like, 7 years. So you're doing great. You're doing so great.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so thank you for that. And yeah, may this be just a reminder that just ask your mama friend, ask your new mama friend,
Yeah,
just ask her how she's doing.
totally. It's so hard. It's so hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
And for someone like myself that knows I'm really birthing, my business is shifting again. And so I'm birthing 2 babies at the same time. And I know that I chose this. And so maybe we can jump to that. I know this kind of was one of the questions that I asked before, but it's like, I have a friend, for example, who had a baby. She left nursing and now she actually went back to nursing and she's bringing the sacred feminine into that establishment. And so
Cool.
this
I
is
love
a
that.
beautiful question, like you said, because we need to know who we are at our core in order to know, am I meant to leave this? Like for me, I know I was meant to start something new and leave
Yeah,
engineering. For other people, they're meant to bring, right, the divine into that place.
yeah.
And so let's talk about, yeah, like how do we get to that point where we know who the fuck we are and we can know, like, do I leave this? Do I stay? Whether it's a relationship or a job or anything else.
Yeah, well, I'll share what happened to me.
Yeah.
So, I just believe that of course, this is what I do, but it's like, I believe that when we come into a sacred practice, whether that is in a morning practice every morning or you're coming into a sacred feminine ceremony, we have an opportunity to hear our souls. And I say, as we're learning to hear ourselves and the divine, sit with it over and over and over again so you can really get to know that voice. It's like building a relationship. So you can hear the difference between the voice of fear and the voice of your soul, or the voice of like wanting to be liked, or which is really just a cover up for fear. And so what happened for me was I was in ceremony and I was working as an emotional eating coach. And I just started to hear every time I sat in ceremony, you aren't who you think you are.
Mm.
And I have like, when I close my eyes and I go into a deep meditation, I see things, and I don't necessarily, like, know if it's past life stuff, but it's like, for me, it's my soul talking in pictures on the inside of my eyes. So I would see ancient temples. I would see women coming together in ceremony and circle, and I was holding the space for them. Now you can imagine, like, preppy girl from Boston, ex marketing manager, emotional eating, internet, like, poster child is now like, getting hits that I'm supposed to be a priestess. It was just super weird for me. But then what started happening was I then started getting signs outside of being in ceremony where my business started to not work and my health started to deteriorate. And I would, everyone would like start like give me all these spiritual books, or I would meet someone who was a priestess. Like also like my random therapist happened
Yeah,
to be
of
a
course,
priestess.
not random at all.
Like, you know what I mean? So um, and this is Elaine Kalila Dowdy. She's still my mentor. She's the woman who ordained me. I know you know her, right, Lindsay?
I
Or
do.
yeah, yeah. And she is just amazing. And so I think that it's this combination of being in the quiet, being an empty presence, sitting with yourself over and over and over and over again. Because we often don't get the information from other people like telling us what to do like the traditional path. Our soul path often comes from within and then from signs. And there's just no rush, you know? And sometimes it doesn't work out. You know what I mean? And that's also okay. Like we don't know how the journey's going to go. But I'd say like make time to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really to me, it's that simple is make time to listen.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. I like the best way to describe it is starting a new journey and like wanting to feel good in my body, right? Like wanting to move my body again, wanting to work out, wanting to nourish. It requires the devotion and the discipline to do it. And how we do that is we carve out time.
Totally.
And a lot of times in the beginning, I love what you said. That's how it was for me, where I'm just like, I don't hear anything.
Yeah. And I sit in ceremony with everybody. I'd be like, wow, they're having like a really
Same,
big experience. And like I could be at the grocery store
same.
right now, you
And
know?
I just kept showing up, and I think that is that soul impulse
Yeah.
that's, like, just like, right, there's a reason why we keep showing up, and then
Yeah.
eventually, I just think about it like flowers in bloom
Oh, it's beautiful.
in the spring. I mean, I've seen where there's been, like, a bed of flowers that one pops up, and then it's, like, a week later where literally the same flower, same amount of sunlight, like, just 2 inches away, takes a week later or a couple weeks later, and so that's kind of the metaphor that I love is, like you said, we want to rush it as humans, and we also want the quick fix, and we also want someone else to tell us. And I think that's probably part of the brainwashing too, if you want to speak to that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, like, we've been taught to not trust ourselves, and we've been, you know, taught to outsource our, like, it's not even worth. I'm trying to find the word. It's like we've been taught to outsource, like, our identity from other people,
Ooh.
and we just really need to practice self-identifying who we
Mhm.
are and looking within instead of just constantly looking, you know, outside of ourselves. But it's
Mhm.
hard, and I think we have to normalize the fact that it's hard because
Yeah.
what we can do is like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I let myself, like, have them tell me what to do, and I can't believe I, like, walked down this path," and we beat ourselves up. It's like, yeah, women have been oppressed for centuries, you know? We're, like, just if you look at the span of history, we're just coming, like, back into like a they're really trying to put us back right now, but it's like we got to give ourselves compassion while also knowing that every single moment that we decide to stand in sovereignty is important.
Mm. And yeah, it's for the collective, but ultimately it's for ourselves. Like when you talk about having that meaningful existence where we feel alive, right? It's like ultimately, I just know deep down that I was here to be a mother and to experience and travel and to support humanity and to just feel good. Like I want to freaking feel good.
Yeah, totally, and I think that's great. And just, like, what's real is that, like, my experience is the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like, great, I'm here for myself, but, like, I'm here for the collective.
Yeah.
And feeling my spot on the web is, is lighting me up in, like, such a deep and profound way. And also, like, that has shifted with, my availability with, like, the age of my kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think that it's always good to, like, be in the dance of that.
In the dance, like you said, in different seasons, right? So for me, like the way that I think about it, because I feel like my time is limited, or right, because I'm in this season of giving to my son, when I think about it, I'm like, okay, if I can be a present mother, if I can really focus on my family unit, if I can feel like in integrity and feel fully alive, I just think about the ripple. It's like that's what I feel is my responsibility right now. But of
Yeah,
course, knowing that that can shift, like hopefully at 4, I'll be in a different spot where I'm like
yeah,
ready to rock my sacred mission again. But for now, it feels like that feels tangible for me and doable. And I think that maybe you want to speak to that where, like you said, depending on seasons, like my mother-in-law just passed away, like we just moved, right? There's different seasons where these big
mm.
catalyzing things happen too that require more of our energy to be a little bit more, within.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's just important to watch, like, how long those seasons are. And are we in an ebb and flow, or are we just, like, always in a season of only thinking
Yeah.
about ourselves? You know what I mean?
Love
Because I
that.
think what can happen is we can get, like, stuck in it, or we're thinking that something needs to happen in our personal lives, and we're gonna feel a certain way, and or we think we'll have more space to be in service.
I love that.
And what I have found is that we actually need to sometimes, like, push through some resistance and make space to be in service. And when we do that, we realize that a lot of the things that have been taking up time in our lives are not important. And it really puts things in perspective, and we end up reorganizing. And it's a cool I find that, like, having love in action outside of our families is such like, a beautiful, sacred process.
I love that you're mentioning this because what I'm hearing from you over and over again, really, it's like the making space, right? So, a
Yeah.
great example for me, for those listening to my journey, right? The podcast actually really started to take off actually when I was in the messy middle of postpartum. And I just knew that, okay, how was I doing this before? And how can I do this now in a way that feels nourishing, in a way that still keeps things in momentum? Because I know that this is part of why I'm here. And so instead of 4 times a month, I'm doing it 2 times, right? It's like just cutting down. And it was so messy in the beginning. And then it
Yeah.
just was like, I would be in meditation and be like, reach out to this person, and then it was like, yes, 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 yes. And I'm in the joy of it. And it reminds me that, like I am here for a bigger purpose, even though, right. So I'm here for the collective, but ultimately, right. I still feel that, I'm in the postpartum portal.
Yeah, totally. I love that.
Amazing. All right. So before we hear all the ways that people can connect with you, I saw a recent post, and this is going to be coming out just before you launch some new yummy goodness. And where did I write it down? Okay, so it was titled Why I'm Leaving the Personal Development Industry. So as we're talking metamorphosis, as we're talking evolution, as we're talking about the constant dynamicism of being a human, do you want to speak to how your company and your service work is shifting, and maybe give a little taste or teaser for what's to come.
Yeah.
Because I believe when this episode launches, it'll be here. And
It'll
so
be
we'll be
here.
sharing it.
I know, it's so fun to be in a little bit of a time machine with you. So as I mentioned, I started an emotional eating practice in 2009, and it was such a beautiful process. You know, I really believe in personal development as a tool, and it's like such an important industry, and it just saved my life, you know? And what happened was why I was in the personal development industry and also having a lot of success, I was training to be a priestess. So it's sort of like working in an Italian restaurant while training to be a French chef. And so what I was doing was I was weaving my French cooking into the Italian environment,
Mhm.
and until it was just like full French food, and people are like, I thought this was an Italian restaurant. And I'm like, nope, it's not. It's a French restaurant. You know what I So that's my little metaphor for what's been happening. So it's like when people come to into a personal development program, they expect like measurable transformation over a period of time that is usually short. It is always about the individual journey, period. And it is often about money. And it is also um, sort of like oftentimes people will show up like they're watching a show. Like, what are you going to get? What are you going to give to me? How are you going to transform me? So, which is fine if like that's what I was doing, but I wasn't. So, I was a as a priestess, we're in a relationship where when you come into ceremony, you have to be fully present and you're making an offering to the whole. And the whole coherent field doesn't work unless every single person is present.
Mm.
And I believe that at the core of spirituality is our connection to the whole, not focused on the individual. And we do inner transformational work in order to be available for the whole and to understand our role in the repair. But it needs to be, you know, the micro of the macro. And so what was happening was like as I was bringing in these themes and creating this agreement field, we had not everybody, but some people be like, "Wait a second. Like I want to feel good here. I just want to work on my happiness." Um and I'm like, "Oh, sorry. I should have updated you. Ceremony doesn't always feel good." Like sometimes it does. Like I love it, you know, and in the sacred feminine, we love our darkness as our light. So we're gonna do the deep shadow work. And it's not like rainbows and butterflies in my world. So I realized that I shouldn't say I. So my business partner, Kelly Tavares, and I realized that this wasn't a fit anymore. And we needed to create a new architecture that could actually hold the work that we're doing. So I went like back into the history books and like restudied how ancient sacred feminine temples were set up and what their value systems were and how they were run and what their role was in the community, you know, and they have tenets like um, you know, they held ceremony and wisdom sharing and collective care and wealth distribution and a place for community connection and grief work and rites of passage. And
Mm.
so we took this ancient architecture and we asked, how do we create this for 2025? How do we build an actual temple with these tenets in this architecture for right now and what's happening in the world right now so that we can, with the internet, hold our global community and respond to what's happening for the collective instead of just being a place for people to come for themselves. So we're opening it probably when you'll see us in a couple weeks. We're so excited. It
Mm.
just feels like the truest form of the work and like the architecture we really need in order to hold the full range of what we believe in and the experiences we want women to have.
I love it. And so make sure obviously when this launches, right now we're in a time
Yeah.
capsule right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
So everything will absolutely be in the show notes. And of course, I know that you like to hang out on Instagram and your
I
website
do.
is also sarahjenks.com. Is there
Yeah.
anywhere else that you would like people to connect in so that they can get plugged in outside of the show notes of how to be
Yeah,
in
I
your
mean,
world?
I think a really great place to start is I have this morning ritual practice that we call a sacred start.
Okay.
And so if you go to sarahjenks.com/sacred start,
Okay.
that's like a free, like self-study morning ritual guide. So that's a great way to just like actually be in relationship with the work. And if you want to, dive right into that.
Okay. So we'll put that in the show notes as
Great.
well. And I love again that you're embodying this example of something that potentially was in breakdown, right? Like things weren't working in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, or there was feedback of like, okay, this actually isn't serving the highest good in this moment. And you took that and I love it. You like went into researcher mode and you went and like, you're bridging that ancient wisdom with the modern world to bring a virtual temple. And I know you also do in-person work as well, but this just it feels really yummy. And so again, it's like, changing our relationship when things are in breakdown or not working, or when something that you have this thriving business that you probably could have kept it going and been like, whatever, and just,
Yeah.
but it wasn't feeling an integrity. So that's what I'm hearing from you. It wasn't feeling an integrity for you anymore. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the world has
Yeah.
changed. The world has changed. And, I think if we're called to respond
Yeah.
to the ways the world has changed, we need to answer that call.
Yeah.
And that's been a really big part of it. I realized that like the work we were doing before wasn't making a big enough impact.
Yeah.
And I feel deeply called to do what I can to try to create more love and equality on the planet. So
Mm,
we're giving it our best shot.
thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. I'm so excited to see. And yeah, just to close, what I really am hearing from this new container that, right, that you're creating, what would you call it? What are you even calling it?
So it is called the Living Temple.
The Living Temple, okay. So
Yep.
you're spilling the beans on what it's called.
I'm
So it's
only
a
pulling the
living
beans to you right now in time, but
Yep, I
when
won't tell
everyone
anyone.
when everyone listens to it will be public knowledge at that point. It's the Living Temple, and, the way that it's different, it's, the architecture that we talked about, but all of our ceremonies are in, devotion to the self and in devotion to the collective, and we're really gathering a network of women who are willing to walk out into their communities as community leaders, as sacred women. This brings us back to the beginning of our conversation, saying, it's me. I'm
Mm,
no longer going to be afraid to be honest about who I am or my belief systems. I'm going to use my sovereignty and my capacity to be in service to people, whether that's through service work or community organization, or a donation or art. But we're really encouraging women in this temple to come to the temple, come into themselves, use this container for clarity and for um, coming into the heart and then walking it out into the world as love in action. And I just, if we just like stay in this closed loop, I just don't feel like anything's going to get done.
yeah, and I think what's breaking in the personal development industry is like, right, what I was hearing from you is that like putting power outside of self, right? Like I want Sarah to do this thing for me, and
Right.
also making it so just like what's in it for me. And so, right, it's
Right.
like bringing the power back within with that inner sovereignty, and then it's like expanding that out into the world. So thank you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah. You're so welcome.
you. All right. Do you have any final thoughts before we pop off here?
What are you feeling? I think that There's a thread that's been happening in my world around, does sacred practice even matter? And or is it a waste of time, you know? And there's 2 things that I think are important to say since everyone coming here, on some level, all of you know that it matters, else you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. And we all have a part of ourselves that questions, and all of our time is so precious. And we wanna really make sure we're spending our time and money in a way that is in full integrity with our belief systems and our values. And so I would say that what I love about having a sacred practice is it reminds us that we can love the parts of ourselves that we have believed are unlovable. We have absolute clarity if we listen hard enough about the direction we're supposed to go into our life. We are all actually sovereign beings. We are deeply connected and supported by the earth, and we are responsible for each other. And when we have a place that can connect us to all of those things, then we are so useful and our lives can be so on purpose. And so it's just, 10 points for having a spiritual practice. I just think it's really important.
And so the Sacred Start is a beautiful free tool
Yep.
that I would absolutely make sure you check out the show notes. And again, and carve out the time because that's what's required. It requires you to create the space. And what I found is that it ends up being simpler, right? It ends up feeling like there's more time when we actually can devote ourselves to that sacred practice. So thank you for honestly all of the work that you're doing in the
Oh,
world.
thanks,
I'm
Lindsay.
just so grateful. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for heeding the call and creating something new for the world. And I
You're
can't
so
wait to
welcome.
be a part of it. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, sending
Bye,
love.
everybody.